Hey everyone, and welcome back for another edition of BNEWS Sports Hub. I'm your host, Liz Gillespie. This month, we'll have a conversation with BHS Athletic Director Shaun Hart about how the fall season went and what's in store for the winter. We also have the Red Devil Review with Robert Paris, and that's all right here, right now, on this month's BNEWS Sports Hub. To jumpstart our discussion, we will offer you a little refresher on how everyone performed during the Fall Session 1 season. We now go to BNews sports reporter Robert Paris for the Red Devil Review.
Hey everyone, I'm Robert Paris for your Red Devil Review. It is official, the 2020 Fall Session 1 is in the books at BHS. And even though the season was like none other during this pandemic, we were fortunate to see many athletes get an opportunity to play the sports they love safely. Teams who were able to participate in the Fall Session 1 were field hockey, soccer, cross country, and golf. Before we get to the wrap-up of the seasons, let's take a look on how the MIAA decided to have 2 seasons for fall sports. A few teams were unable to take part in the Session 1 because they were categorized as high risk. Those sports were swimming, volleyball, cheerleading, and football. And they all moved to Fall Session 2, which is planned for this coming February. As previously mentioned, the Fall Session 1 season was different from years past. The first major difference was that the teams played the same school consecutively for 2 weeks. One was at home and 1 week away. These decisions were made purposely by the MIAA to ensure the safety of athletes and the coaching staff. If any positive cases were found on the teams, they would either postpone a game for a later date or cancel it. Now, let's take a look at some of the teams that were able to have the season. Lady Devils Field Hockey had a rebuilding season, and they had to adapt to a new way of playing on the field with 6 girls instead of the usual 10. The teams had 2 wins, 6 losses, and 1 tie. Only 2 seniors will be departing from the team. Goalie Alexia Hamilton and Natalie Frazier. The Red Devil soccer team had the exact same record as the field hockey team. They too went 2-6-1. 9 seniors will depart from the team. Shaun Thurier, Liam Gaffney, Finian Gunther, Max Letcher, Kevin Mahoney, Cameron Noonan, Jonathan Malaria, and Giannis Stefandis. Lady Devils Soccer also had a rebuilding season this year. The team had 0 wins, 7 losses, and 3 ties. 7 seniors will be departing from the team: Shannon Borby, Alania Calway, Kaylee Frieden, Shannon McDonald, Angela Mellon, Megan Murphy, and Marina Callahan. Seniors Megan Murphy and Marina Callahan also received the Division All-Stars Awards for girls soccer. And Murphy was honored with the Eastern Massachusetts All-Star as well. Boys cross country almost went undefeated during the season, but during the last game of the year, the team fell to the Wakefield Warriors at Landrigan Field. Burlington had 4 wins and 1 loss. 7 seniors will be departing: Cole Capiobianco, Kevin Carnes, John Giles, James Johnson, Alexander Piscatelletti, and Jonathan Walensky. Senior James Johnson, Richard Cromwell, and sophomores Ratik Prakash and Patrick Gray all received the ML Freedom Division All-Stars. Johnson was named Most Valuable Player for the 2nd year in a row. Girls cross country finished the year at 1-4. With a win against the Watertown Red Raiders, 4 seniors will be parting ways from the team: Paige Giordano, Allison Illage, Allison Irwin, and Colleen McMakin. Red Devil Golf finished the year at 6-3. Burlington lost twice against Melrose and once against Wakefield. 4 seniors will depart from the team: Colin Brown, Sean Malone, Nick Pellegrino, and Shishak Uthapa. Seniors Colin Brown, Shaun Malone, and Nick Pellegrino received the Middlesex League Freedom Division All-Stars. Malone and Pellegrino received the All-Stars 2 years in a row. We'd like to congratulate everyone who competed in the Fall Session 1 season, and for those who received awards. As we head towards the winter season, we are hopeful for a full season of competition while staying safe during the COVID-19 pandemic. And that is all for your Red Devil Review. I'm Robert Paris. Back to you, Liz.
Thanks, Robert. And now I'm back with my guest, Athletic Director Shaun Hart. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. So to start, how successful do you think this fall sports were this year?
I think it was probably better than we could have dreamed.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it was a home run, to use the old sports analogy. We were very lucky. I mean, obviously 12 schools in the Middlesex League. We broke into 2 divisions. We played the Freedom teams. The Liberty teams played the Liberty teams. And of all the schools that participated in athletics this fall, nobody played more games than we did.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was really good. We ended up with 1 varsity level cancellation, obviously due to an abundance of caution with the COVID protocols. But everything else played, and missing 1 game of the entire pandemic and the entire way we built the season. And again, nobody else had as much success in getting games in than we did. And it was it was overwhelming at times, but worth every minute, because again, I think that the student athletes here, I think the parents here, I think that just overall people were just like to have it.
That's incredible. So what were some of the challenges that you ran into putting together the season?
Where do you begin? No, again, I think it's different. Usually, when you do my job, you have a schedule. You're looking at things a year in advance. You're not looking at things a week in advance. So I think that was something we had to get over between the superintendent's office, the principal's office, and my office. Just an amazing amount of conversation and communication, which I was really appreciative towards, and a lot of support from what we were doing. I think some of the tough things were just the not knowing. Were we doing way too much? Were we doing not enough? And finding that balancing act. And I feel like the biggest thing for me is I told our coaches and our student athletes that, when you go to another venue, they might do things different than we do it, but you're going to do it the way we do it here, and no matter where you go. And I think that paid off for us in the long run. Awesome.
So what would you say some of the biggest positives that came out of the season would be?
All but 1 game.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's a pretty big one. Again, it's one of those things where I always say it's you don't know what you have until it's gone.
Yeah, exactly.
So there were some students didn't even have their season yet. A season that would have been played. We would have had Thanksgiving already. We would have played that, the football game. We would have done those things. All of those things got taken away for us for now. We'll get some of them back, But ultimately, I think that the parents and the student athletes that got to participate were really thankful that we did it. And again, I will say I owe a huge thank you to you guys here at BCAT and the coverage, and to Robert out there that did yeoman's work for us, covering every single game and making sure that, the people could log in and they could see things. And I thought it was really great. So I think that level of community and how people just kind of drove together to make sure everything was going to happen, it worked, and probably better than we could have imagined at the beginning. So
that's awesome.
It was really good.
So what were some of the things you did to protect the players and the coaches throughout the season?
So we took an abundance of steps. So obviously the masks were a huge thing. And again, the state mandated that you could, wear masks at times and not at other times. As a league, we said you have to wear them in every game all the time. We upped the steps to make it so the kids didn't have to think about it, to be honest. Again, we provided masks to everybody that played for us. We went through all the sanitizing protocols. We stopped. We had, I know you saw us at a game here and there, and we're disinfecting the balls being used. We're disinfecting the benches that are being used in between quarters. Again, making sure that the teams that come to Burlington are equally as safe, even if they weren't prepared for something or forgot something. We made sure we had extra everything. We made sure that we could make sure that those kids are safe, and making those kids safe, it made our kids safer.
Awesome. Exactly what you like to hear. So was trying to schedule with other teams difficult, especially since you only missed one game?
So the good part for us is that the way one of our safety protocols is we played each school for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So we play on Saturday, and then we followed it with a following Saturday against the same school. So that if we had any infection or if we had any COVID or anything like that, we could deal with the issues from school to school and not affect the entire league like we could in a week normally.
Exactly.
So we built that into our schedule. So the good news is we had some flexibility there where if we had to change a day within the week or we had to go from Saturday to Friday or Friday to Saturday, we could do some of those things and not miss a beat. But we ended up playing without, for instance, we played without if we had somebody who we thought might have been a close contact, we sat those people out. We had our cohorts built, so we sat some people out. So we could still participate, we could still play, but we might have missed, athlete A or B, but it is what it is. We know that's the time we live in.
Perfect. Was there anything that didn't go according to plan?
No, honestly, no. I think that we were, how about this? What didn't go according to plan is I think we overplanned. So I guess like in a way, I think that not knowing you plan for everything that could possibly happen, and you spend so much time planning for the 1% that you kind of forget about the 99, which is super easy. You know what I mean?
So looking at specifics as opposed to general.
Correct.
So only parents were allowed. What was it like to try and check people into games?
So we allowed one parent. And it was actually one person per rostered spot. So if we had 20 people on the roster, then we gave out lanyards. The lanyards had a badge on it. The badge was very big and clear that it said what school you were from, what sport you were there supporting. So if you were there if you were a girls soccer player, couldn't use their badge to go watch a cross country meet. Because we had people at the gates, the people would walk in, you'd show the badge, you'd have the sport, had the badge, you let that person in. And then we had viewing areas set up for each individual sport. So if we had a JV soccer game on one side, and we have a boys varsity soccer game on the other side, we had viewing areas that they couldn't come past. We kept everybody away from the field. So we had it set up pretty well. So
if you had like a soccer game and then a field hockey game like immediately after, you'd have to get the soccer parents out before you could get the field hockey parents in?
And that's how we did it. So what we would do is we would empty the stadium, we'd bring the kids in, and because our stadium is so big, we could put people in areas, keep them all socially distanced, so we controlled where the teams were, so they weren't out in the parking lot hanging out and doing all those things. So we would do that, we'd bring our teams in, and then the parents, we would empty the stands through one exit, and then we would recheck the next parents in.
Oh, smart. That's good. Did the team sizes change any? Like, did you have like people that didn't want to return because of COVID?
We did have some people, and we will, again, going into the winter, the whole argument right now is, when you're outside, doing sports outside, I think people felt a little more secure about it. Now coming inside, there's a little bit more apprehension maybe. But I think ultimately we did have some people. We did have some people check out for the fall and just for safety reasons, which again, nobody has a problem with, which I think will happen again in the winter. But I think overall, there's a level of angst no matter where you fall in it. So.
Hey, you got a team, so that's good. So you were at the majority of the games. What was it like to see all the athletes and the coaches back on the field?
I think we're just happy that they're out there. I mean, this has been a stressful time for everyone, no matter what you do. I think that, again, we talk about the social, emotional well-being of people and of student athletes and students in general. I think allowing people to have the opportunity to go out and actually just burn off some steam and run. And it was interesting because, I said, playing just the freedom level teams, I don't think it took away from what the kids were trying to accomplish. I think they still went out and they still were competing and they still tried to win, and they were, they played with an intensity level which they would have played with normally. And I think there was a general sense of people being satisfied with what they got. They didn't need an extra step. They didn't need extra more. You know what I mean? I think people were just satisfied.
Exactly. It's perfect. So to transition into talking about the upcoming winter season, what are your current thoughts on the winter season?
So we're still early in it. Again, winter would have started November 30th, which was yesterday. So that would have been our first day of winter sports. So it's a little weird. I said this to my wife earlier. I mean, it was the first Thanksgiving in like 23 or 25 years that I didn't work.
Oh, wow.
So, it was a different day for us at home. I know it was a different day for a lot of people. And now we're in the winter, so we didn't have our first startup, our first tryout in all the different sports that we had yesterday. So we're pushed off now. Luckily, again, not in a bad way, luckily, and I think it's smart. We wanted to take a full 14 days after Thanksgiving because we thought it made sense for the holiday. And then we're going to start on the 14th with our winter tryouts. We're going to offer boys and girls ice hockey. We're going to offer boys and girls basketball. We're going to offer gymnastics. Again, with boys and girls, hopefully, but the problem is that we're a league-only scenario in our small bubbles right now. And in the boys gymnastics realm, there is no league. Oh,
yeah, that's right.
There's only 5 teams in the state that have it. So there's a conversation of what teams are going to offer and what teams aren't going to offer it. So we're kind of a mixed bag right now. So we're just waiting to get the information and get it out there. But again, we're looking forward to a startup, and
awesome.
We still have concerns, but
of course
we're going to have them, I think, no matter where we go.
Yeah. So what are some of the rules or modifications that you've come up with so far for the sports that you're offering?
So the biggest thing, then what people will, again, they'll have the biggest opinion on is that in all winter sports, there will be no fans.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a big to-do. And again, having the one fan outside was a big step back for a lot of people. But I'll tell you, in Burlington, people may have had an opinion whether they thought we could have more or thought we shouldn't have more. And I appreciate all of the things. But nobody voiced them. I thought it was really great that people were there, were enjoying the fact that they were outside and enjoying watching their son, daughter, or significant other or whatever play the game. You know what I mean? And in the winter, my main focus right now is to actually make the safest possible environment. So limiting numbers of bodies. Again, we've always had managers and all these different things. All of those things are going to be cut back in the winter because the number of people in the rink and the way you social distance and in a gym and in a rink and in different things. So with all of those things and the concepts in mind, we're trying to limit the number of bodies anywhere. And we know that the governor made one rule and the schools have a different rule and these people have a different rule. So we're just trying to say that, the actual playing of the sport and giving the kids an opportunity to play is more meaningful than having one extra person try and jam in and figure it out. So again, the luxury that we have is that we're playing, and another luxury that we have is there's going to be hopefully another great winter with BCAT providing.
Of course.
And I think that being able to have the opportunity to watch it makes it less worrisome for us because we're offering a way to see it.
It's perfect.
So
are team sizes being limited because of this?
Right now they are. So in the fall, we actually moved the roster size up so that we didn't have transfer. If you made the JV team and you were the best player on the JV team, there was an opportunity at some point during the season that you might get pulled up to varsity. That's how it always has worked. In the fall, we told coaches that there was no moving up and down. In the winter, there will be no moving up and down, but the MIAA actually put a harsher limit, which again, we all agree with. So in basketball, you'll be limited to 15 total members of your basketball team, which actually is a big basketball team for us. We usually carry, 10, 12 on our basketball team, so it would be a much bigger team for us. Hockey usually carries around 23 or 24 kids. They will be locked in at 20. The number of coaches, there can only be 3 coaches on the bench ever. So that number will change. I know not everybody has 3 coaches, but that's a big difference. And then 1 trainer. So, we're literally, the staffs will be much smaller.
Is the schedule for the winter season similar to what you're doing for the fall or what you did for the fall?
It's going to be exactly the same. We're going to play 10 weeks or we don't have 10 full weeks between now and the end of the season. So we're going to play a 10-game schedule. We're going to play the Freedom teams again as we did in the fall. And what we're hoping to do, and again, this is a big secret right now that I'll let out, but what we're hoping to be able to do is at the end, if we have a lot of success and we do things well, we're hoping to be able to add at the end of the winter season a Middlesex League tournament between hockey and basketball to be able to give those kids a little something at the end. And I think what we learned from the fall is had we changed some things just a little bit, we might have been able to do it in the fall, but we were so new at figuring out how to do it. It was not worth biting it off yet. So we're going to try and offer it in the winter. And again, no promises. If it's going to see how we're going. And if things are going really well, then great. If things are not going well, then that'll be that. Absolutely
makes sense. So you said 10 weeks. So what would the end date for that be?
So right now, the end of the winter season is February 21st, I believe it is. And then the fall 2 season would start on February 22nd.
Okay.
So I think that right now our last scheduled game without the tournament, I think is roughly right around the 13th of February or 14th of February or something like that. And if we have the tournament, we would take it all the way through to the 21st, I believe.
Oh, okay. So winter sports in the past have been typically during the evening, and now Governor Baker has issued the stay-at-home after 10 p.m. Does that affect any of the game times that are being played?
So yes and no. So I think that we've always been lucky that we don't really have a game after 10 o'clock. We would never be out after 10 o'clock. Even if we had a boys or a girls basketball game at a 7 o'clock start on a Friday night, we're still be done by 9. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So I think we're okay there. And hockey is the same thing. A couple of years ago, we used to play an 8 o'clock start for hockey, which would put us just to almost 10.
Yeah.
And then 2 years ago, I changed our ice times around. So now we actually go on the ice 2 hours earlier.
Oh, perfect.
So we'll be out of there every day by 8 o'clock, the latest. If we play in the evenings. But because we're only going to play one game a week now, it's going to give us some flexibility in our schedule. So we're either going to play on Wednesdays or Saturdays, but it would probably be earlier.
Yeah. Are there any particular problems that you are foreseeing now that sports are now inside?
Again, I think the biggest question is just indoor versus outdoor. You know what I mean? So now, before when you needed a 5-second mass break, you could walk 20 feet that way. There's nobody standing around. You felt comfortable taking your mask off for a minute to catch your breath. Now we have to offer that same opportunity for somebody who's standing inside and working out in a smaller area.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest piece for us is that in basketball, when you think about basketball, all of the action takes place on the floor where people are in close contact.
Yeah.
When the basketball players go to the bench, they can socially distance and be really far away, so that's not the problem.
Yeah.
But in ice hockey, it's the exact opposite. So all of the action is out on the ice and it's pretty well spread out. But then when they go back to the bench, they're sitting on a very small bench next to each other.
Yeah.
So it's two totally different methods of thinking when you're kind of figuring it out. So we've built two pretty extensive game plans, one for hockey and one for basketball, which I think is going to be great. And again, it's going to, it'll be a little colder because obviously when you're in the ice rink, we're building areas, breathing areas and things like that are going to be inside, outside, with doors open so people can walk out and walk back in and things like that. So I think we have a good plan. It's just going to be a matter of making sure we get to follow through with everything that has to happen.
Make sure everything's executed properly. Perfect. So is everyone still required to wear a mask while you're there?
I don't foresee that changing.
Okay.
So you can just dub that one in for the spring too.
Okay. Fall 2 as well?
Fall 2 as well.
So speaking of fall 2, if any of the sports that aren't happening in the winter this year, are those getting pushed at all?
Yeah, so indoor track was a tough decision for us. The MIAA actually went through a whole process of figuring out how facilities closed.
Yeah, of course.
Reggie Lewis, Boston University, Harvard, all the places that we run indoor track at have closed their facilities through June. So there's no place for us to run. So having an indoor track, and we don't own a track, so there's very limited to how to run it. So so with the MIA, they moved it to fall 2 as a hope that if we could start indoors and then get outdoors as it got warmer, we may be able to capture some of the season.
Okay.
It's going to have to be rethought, and we're going to do some rethinking on it and things like that. But ultimately, we might be able to capture some of the season and then roll from indoor directly into outdoor. So it may be a little bit more of a prolonged season, but we're just trying to capture the spirit of what it is, even though it's not going to be indoors and it may be harder to do and things like that. But swimming is the same problem we're having. Most places have closed their pools down, like Shaun. We swim at Shaun. Shaun has their own school and they're worried about their own students, so they're not opening up the pool to outside groups. So that's become a hardship for us. And again, not a hardship for us. It's just something that we have to figure out. We have that. And again, the boys gymnastics thing I told you, again, because there's no local teams and teams are opting whether they're going to be in or out, it's been difficult. And if you do something virtually, does it have the same appeal? I don't know how people feel about it. So we've really kind of put a lot of time into thinking about that. So we're kind of all over the map with those things.
So many plans you could come up with. So do you think there is a possibility that you could start the season and then have it canceled midway through?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's again. I think when we talked in the fall, I think we had that same conversation. We might. That's why I said it's so important for us. When we held senior days this year in fall, they were held in the first game of the season. So we did all the senior days. in game one, and it was like we hadn't even played a game yet, and we were like, welcome to the senior, welcome these parents. And I thought it was really well done by our coaches, and I think that it's appreciated that we did it, and I think people want more when it comes to those things, but you're limited to what you can do. So I think that those things will be happening
As
this
a
winter.
senior myself, I would be happy to have it at all.
Just get out there one time.
Exactly.
Just say you did it, and I think that's going to be a big deal. So we will do that. We'll continue that same plan this winter. And again, knowing what happened in the fall, and knowing that you could have an outbreak, or you could have a reason, or you could have an abundance of caution, and you not play a few games because it makes sense. And we went through the whole conversation about what a yellow community is, what a red community is, and we had great discussions about all those things. And some communities chose not to play, some communities chose to play.
Yeah.
So again, not losing games was great, but you have to go into this knowing that whatever you get is a great stride forward, and if you have to stop, it's for the beneficial. It's more beneficial for the group. That's what has to happen.
If you're getting anything at all, that's incredible.
True.
So do you think that if school went fully remote, even if there wasn't a problem with athletics itself, that the sports would be stopped?
I think that the good news is that I'm hoping that never happens.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it would be a conversation. Again, everything comes down to conversation and how comfortable we feel with what's going on. I think it would be the circumstances in which you were remote, and how bad or good or how on the line you were.
Of course.
I think that was a big to-do. I think that some schools have been remote the whole time. Like, for instance, like Watertown and Belmont, both have been remote the whole time. They haven't gone to school since March.
Oh, wow.
So because of that, they still participated in fall sports. They still offered it to their student athletes. But again, I think that if things aren't good in your community, or if you're not feeling good, or you're concerned, be smart and say, we're good for now. Let's live to fight another day. Not bad pun, but you know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying.
I'm picking up what you're putting down with it. So what has been the hardest part of trying to prepare the winter season?
Right now, it's just the short time in which you can prepare. So in the fall, I feel like we talked from March to September about how we were going to gear up. And then we finally got it off, and we had a couple of weeks to kind of put it in motion. So now we came through to winter, and we're the same thing now, where you have 2 weeks to get everything ready to be the best you have to be on day one.
Yeah.
So I think that's but again, having the fall, we have most of our protocols already in place. It's just getting all of our incoming coaches up to date on the expectations. And I think the biggest piece is that, again, we all get so comfortable with each other. It's not letting your guard down because we are comfortable.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's a big deal. It's like, I'm with you every day, so why do I have to wear my mask?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, well, you have to wear your mask because it's the person you're not with every day that you were with for 2 minutes, or, and if we're taking care of our business. And I just said it was so important for our student athletes in the fall to know, and our coaches in the fall to know, that our entire winter season laid on the shoulders of our fall coaches.
Yeah.
If they didn't do it well, and our student athletes in the fall didn't do what they were supposed to do, then we would never be where we are right now. So if our winter kids and coaches don't accept the same challenge, then our fall too will never happen. And again, everybody struggles with the masks. Like,
of course,
people let their guard down, and I just feel it's one of those things where you have to ask yourself, if it's important, you got to do it, and if it's not important, then I don't know what is. So
yeah. So now that we're into winter and the weather is changing, is weather really a factor that goes into anything that you're thinking about?
It just like it would be for a regular school day. If we get a snowstorm, we'll cancel a game. If those kinds of things. You know what I mean? That the same fact. I don't know that the winter weather changes from year to year. It's the winter weather for us is if you can play, you play. If you can't play, you cancel. You reschedule. You figure things out. The only difference would be this year is because of our limited schedule, and we may not be rescheduling a lot of games.
Yeah, of course.
So if we hit a stretch, but again, take it as it comes.
Of course. So other than masks, is there any new types of safety equipment that you have to implement?
Just a lot of disinfecting, and now we're in much smaller areas, so we're going to do a lot more disinfecting. We're going to disinfect in between periods, in between quarters of basketball, periods in hockey. We'll take care of all those things. We have a very again, not having a lot of no spectators makes it much easier for us, because now you don't have to monitor who's wearing masks, who's not wearing masks. People are standing too close together. All of that's eliminated. We are going to restructure some things, obviously. Our bench areas in basketball will be very similar to how they did the NBA basketball benches. We'll spread them. There'll be 10 rows deep and 3 people sitting per row versus all on top of each other.
Yeah.
In hockey, we've made modifications with the Ice Palace already. We removed the penalty box glass so the benches can be fully extended all the way to the score box.
Oh, perfect.
And then we put chairs all the way down the far side. So now the benches are, they're 80 feet long now instead of being 20 feet long.
Perfect.
So things like that. And, and we'll make other modifications as we see them, as we get closer. And we're limiting the numbers. I mean, so you're going to have multiple tryouts that won't exceed over 25 people per tryout per large surface, like the EEA said, and we'll go from there.
Perfect. So is the practice schedule still the same with like 3 practices a week?
Yeah. So we're still stuck at 3. So we're gonna go with 3 varsity practices in a week and 1 game, and we'll have. We're thinking about the conversation is in between us and the superintendents is letting the junior varsity or sub varsity teams try and get 3 in if we could and still have their 1 game. But again, we're just facility is basing on what you can and can't do. So we're
take it as it comes. Has there been any pushback from the coaches this season?
None.
Wow.
What do you push back on?
I
Again, I mean, the options are play the way we're asked to play to keep our people as safe as humanly possible, or say that you don't like it and I'm not doing it. I mean, I think that those are the only 2 options. So ultimately, the good news is that, I felt it was important that I sent the modifications out to all the coaches. I did it in the fall. I did it in the spring. We'll do it fall too. We'll do it in the spring.
Of course.
So what people will do is I said, sit down and read through them and think about you, think about your sport, think about your kids. And if there's something in there that you just says, I cannot do this, then we'll have that conversation. But I said, if the modifications are the modifications and you're ready to go, then the modifications are the modifications.
Yeah.
And every single coach that we had fall and winter so far, we had that same meeting, and the meeting was nothing more than you read through your stuff. Do you see anything that says your heart's not in it? You know what I mean? And there's a million reasons why right now that you could say I'm not comfortable doing it this year or things like that. But all of our coaches have been tremendous, and I think the coaches that are disappointed are the coaches whose seasons got moved again. Like our indoor track coaches are disappointed that they're not starting because they got pushed, and swimming's disappointed, and boys gymnastics could be disappointed if we don't go through with it. And there's going to be a level of disappointment if you don't get to have your season, even if it gets pushed, because it's going to be different. Yeah,
of course. Has there been any changes with referees or anything like that?
The referees have to live by the rules that we put in place, and the good news is that they, ultimately they come in and they work for the school system while they're here. So if we tell them they have to wear masks and they have to do this, but there's been a lot of officials in all actuality, so depending on age and everything else that goes on, there's some people who have decided that this is not the right time for them to run around and officiate a basketball game or be on the ice, and we respect all of that, and there will be new people that will come up and do games.
Of course. So how does it affect the season if anyone, a coach or a player or anything like that, tests positive? So
we have cohorts set up in the practice scenarios. So ultimately, when you're playing a game, if somebody was a close contact or somebody unfortunately came down with it or something like that, we would have to go into our protocols, and the Board of Health would come in and they would tell us who the close contacts were. And if there were so many people like on a team that were close contacts that we couldn't play, we would just cancel the 14 days out and we'd move from there. Of course. And things like that. So we have all the protocols in place to be able to do those things. And ultimately, even during the fall, when we did have what we thought was an issue, and which wasn't, but the better part of valor was to just say, we're not going to play today because we don't want to put anybody in jeopardy. We don't want anybody who doesn't know to go in there thinking I have no idea. Yeah. So we did the right thing and canceled the game. And again, every week is a clean slate, if you will. So we just go into it saying, where are we on Thursday if we're playing on Saturday, and if we feel good and everybody's good. And again, we're testing and we're asking all the questions every single day, and every coach is asking all the questions every day, and they're marking every kid. Exactly. So it's excessive sometimes, but it's what has to happen.
Tedious but necessary. Yeah. So are locker rooms still closed for the season?
100%. No locker rooms, especially in the winter. They don't want anybody else in any small rooms.
Oh, yeah. Everyone has to get ready at home and then go to games?
Yep, and obviously, I mean, there's some different issues with that as well, but ultimately what they're asking people to do is come prepared in what you will need to compete in, and obviously, you're not going to wear skates in the car and things like that, but ultimately, we will have a spot for students to come in and put skates on and then go onto the ice surface, but they're not going to want people to go in and get dressed fully, and we'll have an area where goalies will come in and be able to have their goalie pads put on and things like that. We'll have a special area for those guys.
Perfect.
But the normal, everyday, regular player is going to come in prepared, put skates on, or put your shoes on and go on the court and be ready.
Perfect. Have any of the injury or sports medicine procedures been changed, any?
No, right now we were very fortunate. What we did in the fall is we opened a little triage center outside in the field house because there was nobody using it because the locker rooms weren't being used.
That's right.
So we triaged every injury in the field house outside when we needed it because it was outside, and we'll do a similar scenario here. But what we've really tried to do is the good news is that the connections and the communication between the trainers and the coaches and the kids has been much cleaner because now we're making appointments to see them, and we're saying if somebody needs it, we're emailing and saying, I bummed my ankle a little bit. Can I see you today? And they'll make an appointment, and then they take their protocols to have one person in is the only person there. We don't have 20 people sitting in the training room, so it's really worked out well.
Perfect. Are trainers and EMTs required to go to games?
So in varsity level games here in Burlington, we provided an EMT at every varsity level event, most JV level events, and when we can provide them at the freshman level events, if there's not multiple events going on, we do. And this fall, we had a trainer and or EMT or a nurse legitimately as support, not as doing their jobs, but just people there at every single fall event.
Perfect. Are temperature checks required for games?
No. The state isn't requiring them because if I take, again, it depends on what you're taking the temperature with, who's taking the temperature, where you're taking the temperature. So what we're asking in our questions just as every single day is if you have any symptom whatsoever, you're automatically not coming that day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if you're coughing, sneezing, any of those things, any kind of fever within 24 hours, you're not coming. So you have to go through a series of COVID questions. If you say yes to any of those questions, you're automatically sent to our second level of protocol.
Okay. Makes sense. So if any of the other schools decide to cancel or postpone, what happens?
So this year, we had that conversation earlier about postponing our one fall event. I received a phone call on like Saturday morning at like 8 a.m.
Oh, yeah.
And we were supposed to play at 9. Or it was maybe 7:30, we were supposed to play at 9. So we legitimately had a conversation. That's how fast we can make things happen.
Oh, wow.
So I called Stoneham. Stoneham had a conversation. We talked to their kids. They talked to our kids. We had this whole conversation. And I'm essentially between myself and the AD and Stoneham, we just said, you know what? It's just, let's not run any risks. Let's be all set. And then because it was the last Saturday before we switched to a new team, we didn't end up playing the game. Had it been the Saturday beforehand and everybody was cleared a couple of days later, we might have tried to reschedule the game for a Tuesday afternoon.
Oh, yeah.
Because it would have made sense. But because we were going into the next week with another team, it wasn't worth the going through all the red tape.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So,
does holiday break affect how you made the schedule at all?
So the good part is that we really thought it was important because with the holiday break, knowing that right now, tentatively, our first game would be on January 2nd. So we would need to practice that week to be prepared for our January 2nd game.
Oh, yeah.
So it kind of fell right into stride and it made things easy.
Awesome. So what are you looking forward to most with the upcoming winter season?
I'm just looking forward to having it.
Perfect.
Again, game 1. How's that?
Oh, yeah. The right answer. You passed that test.
One game.
Perfect. Is there anything else that I haven't asked about that you want to talk about, or have I about covered it?
No, you covered it. We did a good job today.
Perfect. That's all for this month's episode. I'd like to thank my guest, BHS Athletic Director Shaun Hart, and we'd also like to thank you for watching. I'm your host, Liz Gillespie, and we will see you next time on BNEWS Sports Hub.